Hi everybody, Phil Clark here from Fighteraces again. Following on from our earlier video where we detailed some of the finishing products, glass cloth and epoxy finishing products that are all available through our web shop at Fighteraces. I'm going to do now a step-by-step sort of tutorial of how we'd actually go about using these products to finish a wing panel. This here is just a 58-inch span Acro Watt UK built kit sports model, veneered foam wing, balsa tips, trailing edges, etc. So nothing overly complicated. And then we've got all the product here laid out that we're going to use. So model of this size, we'll start off certainly with a 25-gram cloth, not the heavier 48. Model of this size doesn't really warrant the heavier cloth. We've got the 285 skinning resin, mixing cups, spatulas, the rubber squeegees. Note with the squeegee, I've actually cut it in half. I've generally find just for my size hands, I sort of work like this. So something about 3 fingers width I use as a card. That works about right. If you use the entire card, I just find them a little bit big and a bit cumbersome. So I've just trimmed that down in half. Some nice scissors for cutting the glass cloth. They do blunt quite quickly cutting the glass cloth, so I wouldn't use the other half's kitchen scissors or anything like that. So worthwhile getting some proper glass shears for those. Paper towel. Small brush, acetone for brush cleaning, always helpful, and somewhere I've forgotten them, they're over there, the latex gloves just for protecting my fingers. People don't really want to be touching this stuff too much. You can develop a skin allergy to this with long-term contact with it, so best to avoid it if you can. Always use the rubber gloves. So yes, thank you, a pair of rubber gloves. First thing we need to do, I'd always say your workspace is key with these. Tidy up, hoover up, put as much stuff away as you possibly can so you've got plenty of space to work in, so you're not tripping over things and things are getting in the way. The surface of the model itself, give it a brush down with some paper towel. Big flat paint brushes are good, even the hoover, give it a hoover and get rid of all the traces of any dust, any filler residue, anything like that. That could produce little lumps and bumps underneath the glass cloth as we go. So that's all been done. So as I say, lastly, measuring scales. We've got quite a big decent set here in the workshop because we're using them every day. You don't need to go mad, just some regular kitchen scales from the local supermarket is fine, as long as they're accurate to about 1 gram. That's all you need to worry about. So yeah, so I'll move things out the way to start with, and I'll just get on. I'll just talk my way through this as I go. Any little bits and pieces, any little tips that we've developed over the years, I shall pass them on. So cloth out the bag. This is a 2 metre pack, so it's 1 metre wide, 2 metres long. All of our cloth, you'll see, does come with masking tape on the 2 cut edges, stops it fraying in the bag. So you will have to trim those off. So you've got to be quite careful handling the 25-gram cloth. It does snag quite easily because it's such a fine cloth. So any rough skin, sharp fingernails, anything like that, you've got to be careful with. Masking tape's just stuck itself together slightly. So I'm going to do this in one long run rather than 2 halves. So we're going to turn the cloth round. Laid over one wingtip, just carefully pull it out. Okay, so we're going to have at the leading edge here, I've got an overlap of maybe 50 millimeters, 2 inches. Don't try and be too sparing with the cloth because it's always helpful to have a little edge to hold and to pull here and there. And then to smooth the cloth down, if you just use the palms of your hands, don't get your fingers in it, but just flatten your palms out. And if you carefully just run your hands over the surface, it actually builds up a little bit of static and helps cling the cloth to the surface of the wing. Okay, that's down, that's good. So trim off the excess. Again, trying to leave 50 mil, 2 inches, roughly all the way around. Okay, just note, I should have said beforehand, I've got the wing supported up off the bench on some little high density foam blocks just to lift it up off the surface, so we've got room for the cloth to drape down, again without anything coming into contact too much with the bench underneath. Okay, done. Okay, excess cloth, I'll worry about that later. Fold that back up properly and get that back in the bag. Okay, just going back round, smoothing the cloth down, making sure it's all nice and tight, no wrinkles, no lumps and bumps. Okay, what we're actually worried about here, we're only going to be glassing the flat surfaces. We're not going to try and fold the cloth round the false trailing edges, round the wingtips. You'll find if you do, once the cloth is wetted, it actually bridges slightly and you'll end up with little voids in the corners. So those flat faces we'll deal with later on. At this stage we're only worried about glassing the main flat area of the wing, wrapping the cloth halfway around the leading edge, so then when we turn the wing over and do the top surface, again we'll wrap it halfway around, so you end up with sort of a very narrow joint right down the leading edge of the wing. You can glass the wingtips, end faces of this particular one later on, and then the false trailing edges here where the ailerons would go, we don't generally put any cloth on those at all. We purely paint those with the resin to impregnate the bolster and harden the bolster, and that's all you need to worry about. Okay, so quantity of resin for this wing, we've got a little bit under a square metre. This is 25 grams per square metre cloth, so that dictates it will use 25 grams of resin to wet out a square metre of cloth. This is a little bit under a square metre for the complete span. Bear in mind some of the resin will soak into the wood and impregnate it underneath. So I'm going to start off mixing a little bit more than 25 grams. I'm estimating around about 30 grams of resin, 2.5 to 1 ratio, that's 12 grams of catalyst. So if you pop the mixing cup on the scales, turn on, resin goes in first. These have a safety cap on them once they're open for the first time. Just wait for the scales to 0. Okay, so I'm going to go 30 grams. Okay. 30 points and a bit, nearly. Okay, and then 12 grams catalyst. Colour blue on the catalyst, obviously it's very obvious when you've put the catalyst into the resin because it does turn the whole lot blue. I know how easy it is to get distracted, the phone goes, or you get a text message or something part way through your mix and you think, oh, did I put the catalyst in? Didn't I put the catalyst in? Well, you know you did with this one because it's gone blue if you have. If you haven't got any catalyst in, so don't use it. Okay, and then a good mix. Again, a quick 10 seconds isn't enough. You need to be mixing this for a good minute and a half at least to ensure it's fully mixed. Like I say, these pots are pretty good because the bottoms are flat. If you use some sort of Chinese takeaway type pots that have got ridges in the bottom, you tend to get resin in the bottom corners that isn't mixed in with the catalyst. That tends to be you get wet spots in the corner, so they're a bit harder to mix. So try and find something that has got a flat bottom that mixes in more easily. Okay, happy with that? Right, gloves on next. One little pointer I should have mentioned probably before we put the cloth down on the wing. There's no right or wrong way of doing this. This is a way that we've used and developed over the past 20-30 years. I glassed my first model back in the late 80s, and have used any different resin type, cloth type, etc. Some people ask, do we need to seal the wood, the surface of the wood, be it veneered foam or balsa, before we put the cloth on, to save weight, to stop the resin soaking in, because that's what adds the weight up. I would say no. You want the resin to impregnate the top surface of the fibres of the wood properly to bond the glass cloth down. If you use a sealer of some kind, be it dope, be it sanding sealer or anything like that, you're stopping the resin impregnating the fibres of the wood. And we've seen it before on models we've taken on built by other people where we've maybe had to do a repair or a refurb, and you can actually peel the glass cloth off the surface and it's not bonded to the wood at all. I've seen models outside on a hot day, you know, warbirds, they might be painted dark colours, dark green, dark brown, etc. And we've seen the glass cloth actually blister on the surface because it's not actually adhered to the surface of the wood. So I wouldn't recommend sealing anything at all. Let the resin do its job and actually soak into the wood to start with and actually bond the cloth to the surface. So right, starting with your squeegee, pot of resin, we're going to start in the middle and work our way out. So all we do to start off with is pour a little puddle of resin into the centre, flat hand on the other half, and then using the squeegee, we're just literally spreading the resin out onto the surface. Okay, I can already see this veneer is quite porous, obviously it's soaking that up quite quickly. Keep working centre outwards. I'm pressing quite hard here. You can see the little tram lines coming off the edge of the card. I always tend to try and get the trailing edge of the wing done first, out to the wingtips, dab of resin, and then we'll worry about the leading edge once the trailing edge is all down. So what we're aiming for is I'm now starting to put a little bit more pressure on and forcing the resin through the glass into the wood underneath. When we get to a stage where we're not getting any of these little train tracks, tram lines, we know we've saturated the cloth, we've wetted the cloth out, but there isn't any excess sitting on the surface. It's the excess which we don't want, that's what adds the weight. So we keep on carding until we get to a stage where all of those are gone. Because I'm working over the edges, away from the centre, over the edges. You can see the glass cloth over this trailing edge here where it's overhanging is just starting to get wetted out. Once that's cured, that'll give us a nice hard edge to just run a knife or a sanding block down just to trim the excess off. So we've got no tram lines coming off now, and we can look down the surface. Any white patches that are still showing, we've not quite got enough resin. Any glossy patches, we've got too much resin, you can keep on working those. So I'm just going to concentrate on the leading edge now, got a little bead down the front. I've not even used half that resin yet. So I'm just going to card that resin all the way around the leading edge of the wing. Quite a lot on the wingtip there, some of that can come off. Bring it back down here. Okay, so once we've got to that stage, I'm now wetted out all the way to the edge of the veneer. I've just got the balsa leading edge to worry about now. So I'll start off with a small resin brush and just start working that resin through the cloth into the balsa and wrapping it part way around the leading edge. And again, when we come to flip the wing over and do the other side, we'll do exactly the same. So you get a little overlap around the leading edge. Okay, happy with that for now. So, second side, exactly the same process. Back to your card, pour a little puddle down the centre. Go for a little bit of blue roll rather than using your hands to hold down the resin surface. If you just get yourself a little water paper towel, just use that on the surface, stops you getting sticky horrible hands. Okay, so I've got plenty of resin coming over this trailing edge here, which is going to harden that thin edge of balsa. There's no need to try and wrap the cloth around that at all. Still got train tracks coming off here, so it's still too wet. Just put a little bit more pressure on. just about right on resin quantity. So we're always looking out for any little white patches. There's one in the centre there. Not quite enough resin. Keep working it through. That'll impregnate that nicely. Any glossy areas, keep working them to get the excess resin off. I'm just going to go back to the brush now. Dab a little bit on there because that's a white patch. Okay, just back around this leading edge. Almost perfect, pretty much none left. All we've added to that wing now is 42 grams, which on a model it's going to weigh 7 to 8 pounds. Sorry for mixing metric and imperial, habit. Okay, a little bit more paper towel now, and then you can start working around the leading edge here. See a little bit of resin coming off on the surface. That's just taking any excess off that's around the leading edge and make sure it's fully bonded. And then now it's down, you can even sort of start using this paper towel as blotting and start. So a little bit coming off there as well. Take as much of this resin out as you can. All you want is enough to wet the cloth out and bond it to the surface. Anything that's glossy, anything shouldn't be there, is just adding weight for you. Okay, eagle-eyed amongst you will have spotted we haven't got the central fiberglass bandage on the foam wing at the moment. If you put that on first and then put the lightweight cloth on over the top, when you come to start rubbing down, you'll rub through the lighter weight cloth into the bandage and you'll end up with a weak spot at the edge of the bandage here. So we'd normally do the lightweight cloth first and then put the heavier bandage on top, and then you can blend that edge in without rubbing through everything and creating a weak spot. If you didn't want to use the heavy bandage, you can use multiple layers of the lighter 25 gram cloth. You can start off with one, say this wide, then that wide, and then that wide, and build up a thickness in the centre. 4 layers of 25 gram cloth is 100 grams, which is getting onto the weight of the fiberglass tape bandages that you use to join these traditionally anyway, so that's absolutely fine. And then you get no big horrible ridge that you've got to fill and sand out. Last little tip, if this were jacked up off the bench a little bit, use these little plastic clips and you can actually hang these on the edge of the glass cloth and just use gravity to help you. That keeps the cloth hanging vertically downwards, stops it lifting off where you're around your leading edges, maybe where you have a little hard to get to places, sometimes helps. But so the 25 gram cloth generally sticks pretty well. The 48's a little bit stiffer, so that can sometimes benefit from these. So you just need to jack the wing up off the bench a little bit more. So yeah, that's the basic process, and this now we'll leave alone for 24 hours. So this time tomorrow we'll go round trimming edges, then flip the wing over and do exactly the same thing. And then second video, we'll then detail how we would then take this from the first layer of cloth and resin through the flow coat, and then start talking about the rubbing down the surface, prep and priming, getting it ready for paint. So we'll leave it alone for now. I'll go tidy up. Thanks for watching. I'll see link to all the products is at the end of the video. So yeah, thank you. We'll see you soon. Thanks a lot.